To you, in your opinion, in your definition, what is the difference between sympathy and empathy?
Empathy is where you can relate to the emotions and the experiences that another person is having, but I feel like sympathy is just where you feel for their emotions and you recognize that they are having these feelings.
That's a good question. I actually think about this a lot. Sympathy is more based on a societal reaction to something, like what you would be expected to feel, which is, this might be a weird thing to say in an interview for school, but it makes me think of like sympathy porn, which is like when there's a huge natural disaster or something like that, and people will just obsess over all of the things going on without actually doing anything about it. Compassion, I think, compels a more personal attachment to like the individual that you're talking to.
So, funny that you ask. Sympathy for me is being able to recognize that someone else is hurting, and empathy is being able to identify with that pain.
Well, I think that sympathy is something that anyone can have. You can like sympathize for someone without feeling their exact emotions, and then I see empathy as actually feeling the same thing as whatever another person or another being is feeling.
Well, sympathy is being able to like relate to someone's emotions and like how they're feeling, and empathy is being able to like relate to them because you've gone through something similar.
Empathy is being able to like understand someone's emotions or like how they're feeling from experience, and sympathy is like being able to like feel for that person but not necessarily relate from experience.
So if you were to be in some sort of injury or situation and you were to have a nurse, would you feel more comfortable if a nurse was sympathetic or more empathetic?
I would understand if a nurse couldn't be empathetic towards me, just because like they haven't had that situation that I'm in or anything similar to it. So like I'd appreciate it if a nurse like was sympathetic instead of empathetic, but I think I'd appreciate both.
I think their drive should come more from sympathy. Just because being empathetic with every patient that you're with would be exhausting, unless you work with kids, because they're generally more kind of whatever about conversation. You know, it's great.
I'm gonna say it depends nurse to nurse. I think my first response would be sympathy, just so that you can remove yourself from the situation and do your job properly, and not get too caught up in the emotion of it, but also recognize that your patient is hurting.
Yeah, definitely empathy. I've noticed even in my own times of being a patient, of having nurses, that a nurse who has been like, I've been there before, has always been the one who provides the best care for me.
If you have a nurse that like wants to go into a specific field because like they've kind of like encountered that before, I feel like I'd rather have a nurse that kind of like knows more and like is more empathetic kind of like to what I'm going through.
So I'd rather a sympathetic nurse, because I wouldn't want my nurse to have gone through something I have been going through.
I'd feel more comfortable with an empathetic nurse, but I do believe that like it's best to be sympathetic, because I mean you're not going to meet a nurse that has dealt with everything that they're going to come across.